Hello guys, welcome to the video. Today's topic is, can we buy a world first with money or not? And if yes, how would we do that? How did that change through the expansions? And in the end of the video, you decide if it's possible or make up your mind yourself. In my opinion, it kind of is possible. So let's get started. Let's look into it. And yeah, first of all, in the past, why was this not a topic in the past so much? In the past, guys, the guilds didn't really have that much money. Any guild, any World First guild, you know now, I don't know if Limit was raiding back then, but Method, or back in the days, Paragon, Exorcist, these guilds, they didn't have a lot of money. Nobody was really sponsoring them big time, which meant you don't have money to spend. You need to work real life jobs usually, and you have to play with what you got, which is mostly just, you know, focusing on your skill improvement and maybe farming some gold every now and then with boosts, but nobody would spend their whole life to, you know, get some gold through boosts, except for some people. But it would also always be at a scale where it isn't abusable endlessly, and you would use the gold that you have for certain things, but you wouldn't go above that. And it was also kind of hard to go above that. We're gonna look at it throughout the timeline, kind of, and see how it changed. But it was not as hard abusable as before, although some things were. Also, additionally, it wasn't really worth doing this. Nobody would spend the money they have on this game because you wouldn't make any money out of it, which kind of changed with the evolution of Race to War First, with streaming and companies being behind it and sponsors being behind it. And thanks to all of our sponsors here, which are making it kind of possible. But at the same time, it makes us kind of sad that money is even a factor in this game. Another thing I want to mention here quickly, there are two types of money being a factor that I'm talking about. The first one is the direct factor, going through auction house, buying the item that you want by selling some WoW tokens. That's the direct way of, you know, buying something that gives you power in game. There's an indirect way of having money, which means you don't have to work, you can focus on the game and make a living out of it. Or you're super rich, you don't need to work up, like go work, think about your future, or, you know, get some money to live off of it. There is no need for you to think about that, so you can completely put your focus into the game, which gives you an also clear advantage. The thing about the indirect factor is we can't really do much about it, because this is just the reality of life. You can always focus on something more if you have more money. This is nothing Blizzard can change or the community can change. This is going to be the case always, as long as we have money in real life. And I think we will have that. However, the direct way, that's something Blizzard has influence over. And how did they change this throughout the timeline? Let's look at it. First of all, the biggest thing is there's two types I want to talk about it. There's two types of gold abuse I want to talk about. The first one is the boosts, which did not really change. To some extent, through the timeline this changed, but not a lot. The second thing which has changed a lot is the auction house. And items, how you can sell items. Can you sell items? Are they buying on pickup or account or equip? This is the biggest thing that changed, I think, throughout the tiers and expansions. And this is the first thing we want to look at. So in the past, guys, I started playing the game hardcore in MOP. I played it like in every expansion. However, I started in MOP playing it kind of try hard. That's why I can also say some things after MOP about it. In the past, there were BOE items, and I'm sure you could do stuff with gold. However, I don't really know how much because I wasn't in the scene. So what I would say would be not that important. But let's look at MOP. The BOE items were bind on pickup, so you couldn't actually sell it. You could still farm trash, or you could get lucky on trash and get that drop piece, but your guild decided who that piece goes to. You would often have the muscle to run back to trash to somebody saying, "Oh, something dropped, guys. the master user would run back, talk to the guild, make a council vote, and give the item to somebody. The money would not be involved. However, there was a black market auction house thing. I don't know when this got introduced. I was never into it that much because it often usually just sold cosmetic items. However, sometimes, especially in MOP, I don't know if it was the case before, raid items got added to it. And even back then, Mythic was not existent, so heroic items got added to it before even heroic was out. So this was crazy. This was like buying Mythic Azeroths with your residue without spending any residue, just spending gold. And the gold cap was not as big as I think right now. I'm not sure how much in worth of money it was back then, because back then you didn't have the warp tokens. But you could just gold cap items as soon as they are up there, and you would get them. Obviously, gold cap was still expensive and all, but for base items, it was something you would consider. So what did people do? They often went to the black market auction house on the reset times, they camped it, and they bought the items, sometimes by gold capping it if the competition was high on your server, and sometimes with just winning it on the bids. You could just bid it. There was no instant buy. The only way to instant buy was gold capping, which was kind of crazy if you did it on every item in there. Later on, later on, people saw a way to abuse this, and I think the first example was on ny'alotha, on the Warlords of Draenor expansion. They didn't figure this out in MOP, I think, or nobody dared to do it. But in ny'alotha, somebody did something really weird. Black Market Auction House still kept existing, and I really hated that. I remember it. And a Chinese guild, if I remember it correctly, or it was some Asian guild, decided to hop servers and buy BOEs across realms, across multiple realms, transfer them all to their own realm, and gain a bunch of insanely good items. It was the first tier of the expansion, and items meant a lot as always, and they got a huge lead because of this. And I think they got some rank in the top 5, I think. I'm not sure. Nobody knew the guild even before that, at least in the European scene. And suddenly they were there with like the big boys and were competing. They were even streaming it as far as I remember, because I remember exactly how that arcane mage was blasting the boss, even though it was Shadow back then. I remember that very well. They did that, and I think soon after Blizzard realized how big of a mistake this was and changed it. They removed the black market auction house. At least they removed the items on it and only gave cosmetic items to that. And you know, the system was kind of fixed again. I don't know how much time later, if it was the same patch, but later on, BOEs appeared in the raids, and this was the next big problem. I'm not sure. Maybe even ny'alotha had BOEs. No idea, guys. I tried looking it up, but it was kind of hard to figure it out. BOEs started appearing in raids. The trash items became BOEs, and now this was the next big issue. It started off not that horribly. However, with the addition of Warforged, Titanforged sockets, this turned out again horribly, like became worse and worse. And again, money was becoming a big factor, especially back then. Titan forging was capped to 10 eye levels. This eye level cap got removed to the max eye level cap, and RNG became an insane factor in these BOE drops. And if you had gold, again, you could buy a lot of BOEs, especially if you use multiple servers like the Chinese or Asian guild showed us. And this was going into a bad path. And we're now at BFA levels pretty much. Another big thing was the auction house, like since we're talking just about auction house, the profession swapping things, but I'm going to talk about that later, guys. So looking at BOEs further, what happened? Warforged, Titanforged sockets. This was the next big problem. Blizzard said we're going to solve it. And just like Black Market Auction House, when they said they're going to remove it, I was very happy. Looking at the corruption system, I was never this wrong in my life about being happy about a change from Blizzard. And this was the last time they baited me, guys. I'm never going to be happy about a new system again until I see it actually in game being played out. Because corruption made this thing worse by a million times. I've never seen something like this. and the last year was, I think, the last time I will see something like this. But I also never saw a guild spend this much gold in a single tier for items, and this was absolutely crazy to me. A big disaster. I have no idea. Like, they should, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. I think it's gonna go down in a big line, but you guys know what I'm talking about with corruption. If you guys don't know, it was, items had huge DPS increases on them, and it was almost impossible to get it yourself. To this date, I have only gotten, as an example, to this date, except for last week, I did my M+ every week and my PvP box every week, and I only got one Mastery Amp item to this date, one Mastery Amp, and you could buy 3 BOE Mastery Amp items on the first day if you had enough gold. And doing that for the whole guild meant a disgustingly high DPS increase for any class. It was insane. And I'm hoping next expansion this won't happen. They already said things like this won't happen, but this is something that you could highly abuse. So auction house, number 1. Number 2 is boosts. Now, this is another big problem. I don't think Blizzard will have much control over this as much as the BOE items. What can you do with boosts? What am I talking about boosts? Boosts is something where somebody else is assisting you in the game by doing something for gold. So you pay him gold, he does something for you. You literally hire him in game, as you would hire somebody outside of the game. What can this person do for you? I mean, you know, this can't be that hard. Let's start with the simple things. You're a good PvE player, or you're not a good player, whatever. But PvP drops loot, but you want that loot. So what do? You buy a PvP arena boost. A lot of people in Method even often, that doesn't mean you don't have to be an insanely bad player to buy an arena boost, especially the first week when it's super hard to get high rating. You want to play with people that are really good. So they can help you instead of with your friends who are kind of the same average skill level as you, where with whom it will be much harder to get that same reward, or it will take much longer. So you will go with pros who do it for gold. But there are some other complex stuff that most people don't abuse right now, including us. We don't abuse it that much either, and I hope we don't have to, but we might have to eventually. So one thing is character boosts, leveling up characters, doing anything for your character, dungeon boosts, island boosts. Often you guys, I don't know if you guys know about it, but AP islands often were boosted. You could AFK islands, and your team would keep queuing. After 30 seconds, you would automatically queue and join the next island, and 1 or 2 people would be continuously farming the island for you, where you AFK or go sleep. The problem was only staying online if you go sleep, so you could just do other stuff usually in the meantime, maybe play another character, multi-box, things like that. Most of the people in Method could not abuse this because it was very expensive to do that, and yeah, we didn't have the money. But if you're rich, you can do it, and that's what we're looking at today. If you're rich, what can you do? The next thing is heroic run boosts. So no matter if you're good or not, heroic run boosts are a thing. We are even getting boosted by you guys. Often you will see before heroic raids are launching in the Method streams, there will be a way to apply to join our Method heroic splits, where you come with a character and your only requirement is to have a certain amount of gear or something that you can spend on the raid, and some coins, and willing to trade any item that you can trade to us. We will force you, or well, ask you to coin certain bosses for us, and you get some loot, and then on the next boss where the same loot piece drops, you can trade it to us, which is a big advantage. We get free loot, and this is highly abusable, which is not being done yet. We are abusing it to some extent. We are usually taking 6 or 7 random players into a guild, into runs. However, if you are willing to pay big money for this, there's enough people that are willing to boost you for some gold. And if you pay enough gold, you can assemble a whole team for each player of your raid, which would mean that you can have a 30-man raid for each player. How much would this be? If you have a 20-man roster, let's say, just for simplicity, you would have to find 600 minus 20 people. That would be 580 people that you have to pay. Assume you pay 1 mil each. You have 580 million, you're done. Very easy to get if you're rich, no problem at all. About 60k euros or something. If you go in the legal ways, and I'm assuming that when we're talking about stuff, I never assume you will go the Monkatos road. Nobody would do that because it's too high risk for the reward. You would much rather pay the full amount. And so yeah, 580 mil, easy game, easy life. This is mostly possible. Well, I said at the start, Blizzard doesn't have influence over boost, but they kind of do if they allow money buying or gold buying by WoW tokens. If they would remove WoW tokens, 580 million gold would be much harder to assemble in a legal way, which means your account can get banned, and this is much harder to do. And I definitely incentivize Blizzard to removing WoW tokens in some way, or two options: either make gold completely worthless just for cosmetics or something, or remove WoW tokens, which is a much better choice, I think, because I think gold is a good factor of the game, but WoW tokens definitely aren't. What else do we have? We have the Vikara creation. So a lot of people out there are good at Vikaras, and Vikaras, you guys know how important they are. Looking at Archimond, looking at Queen Ashara, a lot of times Vikaras can get you the War First win. And what's the best way of doing Vikaras? Not by having a guild member do it, because then if he's in the roster, if he's in the raid playing the correct class, suddenly he has to go AFK out and create Vikaras and then come back in to test the Vikaras and so on and so forth. This is really bad. Much better it is if you can pay somebody, or if he does it freely, I mean, up to him, and creates Vikaras for you. And this is another big advantage that often you can buy with gold. This is how we're doing it, honestly. We're paying gold for people who do make Vikaras for us. So I mean, this is definitely big, guys. I can tell you that it doesn't even cost that much, because the time you put into the Vikaras are not that high to make some good Vikaras. You more need them to focus on the Vikaras, so they need to be outside the raid. But yeah, of course, if you want them to be available 24/7 like us, then it might go into higher amounts. But it's definitely worth, I would recommend, even for lower guilds, to assemble a few 100k just for Vikara creation, pay to some guy, and he helps you out. Unless you just take hours, and if you're late, it doesn't matter. Another thing, guys, guild bank maintenance is the last thing we're going to mention about boosting. So this is kind of like boosting, but also not really. You can hire a guy to fix your guild bank. Sometimes people do this for free. Sometimes people in the guild do this. Some socialists do this. But if you don't have those, it's a very good idea to also pay gold to someone to fix your guild bank, put some enchants there, materials, gliders, health stones, or I mean healing tonics, potions, flasks, whatever you need. The gold for this can be provided by the guild, but the person that puts this and organizes and checks us throughout the whole thing, they need to get paid. And I think this is another good way of spending gold, aka money, to get some nice advantage to your guild. So if this all did not convince you, then there are some other things that you can do, some miscellaneous stuff. This is not always available, but sometimes is. Faction quests, events, and for example world bosses. Often world bosses are faction wide, so that the other faction has another world boss, or they don't spawn for some faction but spawns for the other faction, or there's a quest that tells you to kill horde players for the alliance side, which Blizzard tries to incentivize alliance players to increase in numbers, because there's too little to alliance, so they give alliance a bigger reward, so people go play alliance. What happens? Horde players transfer their characters to alliance, do the quest, come back. You need to gold to do that. You need money to do that, because the transfer costs money. Same with realm transfers, this also costs money. Yeah, you need money to do that, and you can get a big advantage. You can get good items, and it's definitely worth, like BOD tier limit, I think, did it with transferring to alliance, getting a quest done, coming back later 3 days because there's a cooldown. Other things, miscellaneous, kind of miscellaneous, is provided catering. For example, when we're in the streaming sphere or streaming places, Take TV, whatever where we will be at, there's usually everything provided to us. We have a hotel, we have catering, we can do whatever we need, and not think about anything else. You don't have to think about, oh, is there, I don't know, bread in the house or something? Do I have to go out and get it? And other things. If there's a need, then you will get distracted. You will have to do it. You will have to take a break maybe in the raid. We don't have to. We will have everything provided, and this is only possible because many methods of spending some money on it. This can help. I don't think the effect is as much, at least for me, but there are definitely other people who are affected by it. Like for me, my wife usually cooks for me. Back then when I was not married, my parents cooked for me. There we go, easy life. And when they were not there, honestly, I would not spend that much time on food. I think it's not that big of a deal, but some people, for some people, it definitely affects it. Other stuff, again, kind of auction house, the profession thing. There's always these miscellaneous weird stuff that you can abuse, and if you think about it, you can do it. Again, BOD tier, equip. You could craft items, equip them, delete your professions, learn another profession, equip, craft an item, equip them, delete your profession, and so on. And once you equip those items, you could trade the items of the same eye level, and you can kind of still do that, but they reduce the eye level cap. Or they reduce the eye level on crafted items so that you cannot trade heroic eye level stuff anymore unless you craft the mythic stuff. In this tier, actually, you could still do some weird shenanigans by getting your mythic materials early by playing arena, but it took way too long and was not really abusable. For stuff like this, you need immense amount of gold because actually rerolling all your professions, learning them, unlearning them, crafting and stuff takes a lot of materials, and often the auction house does not have those materials. So in the end, you end up with like us, we bought materials of 4 different realms, transferred them all to Terran Mill. I literally emptied their guild banks, auction houses, and in the end we had enough materials to do this. Actually, we were missing some on the ores because jewel crafting, blacksmithing, and one more profession I think requires ores. It was, engineering, and it was quite a lot, and service just didn't have enough. This is another thing you can abuse. A lot of abusable stuff. Will this continue to Shadowlands is the question, guys. I hope not. I feel like it is going to be less relevant. However, that's what I thought the last time they removed Warforged and Titanforge, and when they removed Black Market Auction House and other things. But it always kept coming back in some way. And every time it came back, it became worse throughout the history. For me, at least, I think Black Market Auction House was shit, but it was better than BOEs. BOEs were shit with Warforged and Titanforge, but it was better than Corruption. And all I want, and I hope all you guys want also, is that this doesn't continue, because some last words about the pay-to-win system. Some of you might think, maybe I should start the video like this, but you might think this, all of this does not matter, because it's just the people that play really competitive that care about this, right? For all the other guys, it's just a little bit of excitement when you get that item that you can sell for a big amount of gold. I hardly disagree with that, because when you don't have that gold, if you're not one of these 80, 100 guilds, the problem is that you cannot become one of those 80, 100 people. You cannot go for world first. It is impossible for you to win. Last year there was a chance of 0% that you could have won if you had no gold and if you had no money. Sure, you can farm a lot of gold beforehand. However, is that what you want to be doing with your time? Just selling boosts all day and accumulating at least 100 to 200 million gold for becoming relevant in the scene? I don't think raiding should depend on this much gold. If you disagree, that's great. Keep voting for it. Say yoo-hoo every time Blizzard does something like this. I hardly disagree, and I don't think it's nice for people to be excluded from the World First race, that they cannot have a chance unless they spend this amount of time in the game and farm this amount of gold. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this system, guys. Let me know if you disagree or agree. I would love to see in the comments. Like the video if you liked what I said. Dislike it. Okay, don't dislike it ideally, but if you disagree, do it. Fuck it, just do it. And yeah, let me know what you think. I would be really interested. I did this video actually not just for making a video, but I actually wanted to know what you guys think. Very interesting topic. Let's see what Blizzard does for Shadowlands. and I hope I see you guys on the next video. Like, subscribe, whatever you guys want to do in the video, and see you guys next time, boys. Bye bye.